All right. I got to get my camera voice back.
Okay, Mike.
You can do like Grantham and be like,
Oh, he has a whole persona.
I got to do it 100 more times.
And then he spins around. All right, here on Grantham's channel.
Today, guys, we're going to be talking. He's a great guy. Watch his videos.
As you feed him salmon to his mouth.
Today, we're going to be talking about pull doors. And again, I don't know when the push door video got done because this is like Marvel Multiverse. Time is a flat circle or whatever. That's probably a different show. We're going to now talk about the other thing we didn't talk about in the other video, which is how to pull a door open if that is the way the door is made. Before we get into all of the shenanigans with that, we want to talk about some other things, some disclaimers. So before you get your panties in a wad, the only thing we're talking about is the door itself, establishing security, establishing a breacher, self-breaching, two-man breaching, which side is more efficient, angles of exposure and all that. But we're not talking about long security. We're not talking about rear security. We're not talking about forcing a breach. We're talking about when the door is unlocked and simply closed. So the reason we want to talk about this, we said it on the other video as well, a lot of cops get shot through closed doors. FBI's data shows us that the closed door, the last closed door in a residence, is one of the most dangerous things you'll encounter in clearance. Why is that? Well, if we hadn't found the guy yet, and we get to the last closed door in the structure, the FBI would literally call that a clue. He's probably in there. And when we open a door, it's a huge clue as to our location and what we have to do next, which is go through the door. A lot of people are being trained to stand in front of doors, which sounds crazy, but it's true. And we want to kind of get around that by showing what right looks like. So without further ado, let's talk about pull doors. You want to walk them through the anatomy on that, Jay?
Yeah, so how do we know it's a pull door? Well, here are the barrels of the hinges. Notice they're on the outside of the door frame like this, right? So those are the barrels of the hinges. There's a knob over there, so looking at the door for what it is, the way it's sitting in this door frame, we could tell that this door is going to open into this room, right? Or pull. So here's the knob side, and there's the hinge side, and we can tell a couple of ways that we're going to discuss what he said, what right looks like on a way that we can manipulate this door, get it open, and not be standing behind the door when it opens. Because from his point of view right now, if I open the door, what can he see? Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Whole lot of door.
He's going to have to negotiate that door. Most times what we see is whenever he negotiates that door, moves that muzzle around, he's going to flag me as a result of it.
Yeah, or come over here, Mitch, you'll see it better.
Or stand there, have his gun either high ready or high port, low port. He's either going to be at high port, low port to negotiate that door, and when that happens, he has to take in a lot of data.
Or, like he was saying, the door's here and it's coming towards me, and I'm like, get out of the way, door, and look who I'm flagging. Right? So, bad vibes.
So
bad
a lot
feeling.
of problems can occur with standing behind the door. Now, if he has the real estate to be over there on that side and get out of the way of the door, you're still out of the way of the door as it's opening. However, he still can't see anything until it all the way against the door, that wall over there. So we want to set ourselves up for success and be in a better position. That way, when the door opens, we're in a position on the first look side to see what is going on in that area that we're concerned with, right? So the caveat to that is don't be on that side. That's the simple down.
Unless you absolutely had to.
Yeah, the down and dirty is don't be over there, be over here.
The only time you would have to is when the door has a limiting factor, like it terminates over there. So let's say there's a wall here, right? Well, now we can't be on that side. Well, we still don't want to be in front of the door, but this sucks for us. And sometimes, like we talk about in every video, stuff just sucks and it can't be perfect. But we'll talk about, if you have the room, the ideal way to do this.
Yeah.
So take it away, sir.
Yeah, so one of the things you and I were talking offline is one of the last classes that you taught was there's two methods of entry. Now, if we're just doing it by myself, right, just by myself, not a two-man deal, but just by myself doing the solo thing, I'm going to get set up very similar to what you saw earlier, getting that gun out of my shoulder, underneath the armpit. I'm going to angle it up again about that 45. That way when I lean into that door to get ready to open it, the gun is now horizontal. Now, notice I'm not standing in front of the door to pull it open. I am a good leg width apart, good wide stance, angling that gun up. Go ahead and defeat that knob. There's an air gap in here, and I think we talked about this before.
We didn't talk about it on the other video because it's less of a big deal, but we'll talk about it here certainly.
So there's an air gap in that door, and there's a throw that goes into the Did you like when I did that?
Yeah, that's really good. That's good. That's good stuff.
The ASMR? Is
Yeah,
that what
yeah. It tickles my tism. Go ahead.
Okay, now I'm just going to open the door, okay? Is that
Perfect.
okay with you?
Yep.
All right. Okay, so after I'm done tickling his tism, I'm going to work this knob. All right, cool. I should do the mic real quick.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, of course.
So again, there's an air gap in this door frame, right? And the knob or that throw is going into this this strike plate right here. So what we want to do is I can give this a little pull, then release that knob. You see that becomes loose now, and I'm able to give that that door a pull like so. Or I can go over the top and do the same thing. I'm going to pull it to me, release that air gap, and now that door is ready to come open. So how I get set up to defend myself with the weapon system is, again, 45 degrees upward like so. And then when I reach into that knob, I'm just going to go over the top of it like so, defeat that air gap, give it a quick pull, present my gun up, start to lean in to see what's happening that direction. So I'm getting close to the wall so that I can see depth of angle far to the right side.
Tell me about why you got so far off it too.
Well, goodness gracious, I don't want to be in front of that door when it opens, so I'm gonna take a step back, right? How dare I not be in front of the door? Well, one of the things I don't want to do is be in front of the door when it opens, because if you watch the last video, I explained 2 separate occasions when I was standing by a door breaching it and having got shot at through both of those doors. So I don't want to be there. So firsthand knowledge, don't stand in front of the door. So that's why I breach it and I'm taking a step back. What that's given me time is to process. I'm creating a reactionary gap. So if somebody rushes that door or if somebody peeks their head out, I'm presenting a gun up to give me a little bit of room.
It
right?
seems like a good
Why
idea.
not? I have the real estate to move around, not move that light around. Hey, have that removed, all right? But don't be kicking my lights and stuff, right? Those things are expensive. So I'm gonna move back a little bit to give me some time to process some data. So again, what that looks like, gun goes up, defeat that knob, pull that door open, present the gun up, and if I need to, I can start that panning process now. I'm ready to rock and roll, get set up over here for room entry, and away we go.
Schmooth. I like it. So if we had the 2-man involved.
What about
you would-
left-handed? Left-handed.
Shit. So
Left-handed,
as a lefty,
right-handed.
it'd be the same thing. Tucking the rifle, angling it up. Again, I'm leaning in. And for me, it's pretty much the same thing. I know that the door pulls because I'm looking at it. And I can defeat the air gap by pushing it in or pulling it. But I'm going to push just like he talked about. I'm going to roll over the top. As it comes open, stepping back, presenting, deep corner check, and then moving. So it's the same thing. You're just pulling out this way instead of having to pull across. Tomato, tomato, it's the exact same procedure, so don't get it twisted. The only thing I would add from what he demoed was if there's a second man and he's not going to do what we call a reach-around breach, then he just out the way. So come get in my little hip pocket there. We talked about it on the other video. Self-breaching with a second man, his only job is just not get in the way. If he leans in when I lean in and he gets in because he's trying to cheat up, I have nowhere to go now, and there's no reactionary gap. Human behavior shows us that people shoot at stuff that moves. They shoot at things that they can see. When the door starts to open, it's a cue that, hello, we're probably on the knob side, or we're at least in some vicinity of the door. We've seen from videos, we've seen from FBI data, we've seen from personal experience, people shoot at the door and a little bit of the area around it, because most bad guys aren't super good shots anyway. So where do we not want to be? Up against the door and right around it. Think about like a cone of fire. Someone's spraying at that door. They might shoot a foot or 2 left or right of it. So we just want to be off of it. Most people are not going to just send rounds down the drywall, although that's also happened to us. And there's not really a way to mitigate that. So CQB is not perfect. It's not safe. This isn't magic. It's just, hey, let's do some common sense shit and not stand in front of the door. He has to leave me room. And then he would just pick up whatever sector was left over. So he doesn't move beyond the point he's at now. Again, I'm angling that rifle up. Here, I start to pan out and across. That's it. So it's nothing you hadn't seen before on this channel. It's just that we're taking the door that was closed and we're making it open. What if we have the room and now that number 2 man can be a little bit more useful? Again, we're talking about deliberate entry, so we're not going to show them the ransom just yet. You want to we'll do a separate video on that. It'll be a good one. So we have basically an inside man breach or an outside man breach. It's kind of like when you deploy a bang, there's a difference in who pulls security based on angles and exposure. So if Jason set up his security, again, first look, first light, tactical side. If this door was to open now, unlike a push door, that's the first look. That's the tactical side. He's got the most SA into the room. So do we want him taking his hands off his gun? Do we want him doing other stuff? Probably not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to help him out. I'm going to reach around him, and I'm going to work the knob. So from here, he can get pretty tight to the door, honestly. Give me a little bit of room. I'm going to get basically my hips to his holster, and when he's set, he can either give me a barrel wiggle, a head knob, whatever it is. I'm doing the same thing. And as this opens, he's seeing what's exposed, right? But he's going to start to step out just a little bit as I step back, and he's plated me so I can get my gun back in the fight. Now, there's a couple ways we can go from here. Two methodologies, essentially. He can start to pan, or I can start to pan. If he starts to pan, that's called an inside man pan. So I've stepped back, he's already taken space, and now I'm picking up what he dropped. Okay, so we'll do that sort of as a continuous movement. Show you one more time. I must have stepped in some mud outside. He gets back set up. I see that he's waiting on a breach. I come up, he gives me that signal, and we're good to go from here. All right. The other option is just outside man breach. And in this option, he's covering me, but instead of giving up real estate that I could own if I just got my gun in the fight, now I'm going to pick that space up and then I'm going to pan out instead of stepping behind him. So again, looks the same from the start. I'm here, instead of him stepping out, I bring my gun up and I just work over. The same thing we did before. So what are the real differences there? What would you say the pros and cons are of either one?
Well, the first one, it's kind of a one-gun deal when the door opens, right?
Yep.
Which, again, you're giving up something to get something. So my gun is absorbing, or my plates are absorbing everything to protect my buddy when he opens the door. So he's going to breach it and then step away, so that I am now responsible for our security. Then as I start to pan over, he picks up his own security, protects himself. The opposite side of that, the one that you did, version number 2, is that there's a lot of stuff going on right in the middle. When that door opens, there's two dudes right here in one hole. Yeah, so we need to be moving pretty quickly, right? Mm-hmm. So that's one of the things that we harp on in all of our classes, right, is manpower, mission, or environment. Those are the three things that's going to drive or dictate the type of tactics that we do. So this environment, there's a couple of ways to go about it. This environment, we have the room, so we can do that Reacharound breach. Mm-hmm. Or, hey, we want to be, I'm just going to go and do the thing. What if I breach it for us? You know, we haven't even discussed that. It's a two-man deal, but I can still self-breach it. He recognizes I'm going for that knob. He's just going to stand back. I open it, and he defend himself. You know, so there's 3 different ways that we can talk about discussing this one tactical problem, and none of them are the way. Those are a way.
Yeah, either the first man breaches and starts the movement, or the second man breaches, starts the movement, or the second man breaches and doesn't start the movement. It's you literally just making like a Punnett square of options here, right? And it just took y'all back to like 9th grade biology, but the idea is you can mix and match any of these techniques and they're not wrong. It's just simply picking who do we want to risk and why and for how long. We also haven't talked about what if you are forced to be on this side of the door. Oh. So I'm going to move this piece of dead space that we have here in our shoot house, shameless plug, and we'll talk about if we had a limiting factor. I have been in some really crappy scenarios in real life like this. Remember the one, it was a recording studio?
Oh my word.
And I had to breach from my knees with the Thor's hammer.
Yeah, and I'm over the top of you literally holding security.
Yep. So you had to drop security to pull me up as the bang's going in.
Right.
And then you and me are 1 or 2 in.
But that also made a dude do a backflip over a couch.
Bang landed at his feet and he was like, oh Jesus, and then bang went off and he literally somersaulted into the wall. So bangs work, 1. And then 2, I have never trained in my life to breach from my knees with a Thor's hammer, but it was what we needed to do in the moment, and so we did it. You're never going to have all the scenarios down. You just have to be able to mix and match principles. So if I'm on my knees here breaching and Jason's over the top of me with a rifle, there's security, there's a breacher, and we had a flashbang ready to gain some momentum. There was a tunnel just like this. So where else were we supposed to go? There's no other option.
It was doors was kind of recessed in a foyer or a foyer, depending on where
foyer.
Yeah, so it was recessed, and there was basically walls on both sides.
And it was an outward opening door. We had the guy. Yep. We had to set the Halligan with the Thor's hammer and roll it. So again, It's not like we're showing you like, well, this is what's going to work every time. It's just if you have these situations, here's some principle-based options.
Yep.
So let's just say this is a continuous wall, right? And we can't get to that side of it, obviously. What we're seeing a lot on online videos is guys are just standing in the front of the door and breaching it themselves. And then you got this guy over here just dicking off, not doing anything. So this may be a case for getting all the way over here if we need to, or offsetting it. You can also walk the door over. It's what some people do. So you breach it, and then you basically pan backwards across to the unknown. There's a lot of options. If I open this door from here, like we just talked about, what does Jason have?
0.
Yeah, you tell me when you're ready to shoot something, Jay.
Now.
All right. So if I want to be a moving target, there's an option where when I open this thing, I then start my pan. So again, I'm tucking this thing in, I'm here, and I'm panning over to him. And at this point, he's picked up the only thing I can't see. Now, have I given up real estate? Sure, but that's how pans work. So now, having seen most of it, I simply have to buy back out. And if I didn't see a shooter already, hopefully we have a little bit better of a chance of just being like, here I am, shoot me just in case. We could also just get on this side of the door and eat that risk of, one, having to step out and across it. Again, like we talked about in the other video, look at the shadow I'm putting across the door. So to get over here to this knob, I have to really almost kind of like take my gun out of the fight and get to it if I don't want to put a shadow under it. Is any of this ideal? Absolutely not.
But the environment is telling us what to do based on what we have. We can't change the layout.
Right.
We can just change our positions or try to better our position the best we can around this particular tactical problem.
Yep.
There's no easy fix.
Yeah, so we keep preaching on like, get on the tactical side, get on the knob side. Psych, there's a wall there. We still wouldn't advise you to stand in front of the door. And if you're going to do that, try to be a moving target. Again, I've just worked with some guys that they do a high-low here. So I'll just be my high guy and I'll be the guy kneeling. I'm going to get here. Jason can have a gun over the top of me. And I can still have my gun in the fight if I need to. And I'm opening this from here, right? Jason can pan out or do whatever he needs to do. And then I'm able to get up and we have our entry. What are the cons of that?
I cannot predict your behavior if we start taking rounds. You're going to stand up. You're going to get out of there. And we're sitting basically stationary in a doorway when that door opens.
Yeah, we have 2 people in front of the door. What did we just say at the beginning of the video?
Don't stand in the doorway.
Yeah, don't stand in front of the door because rounds are going to go there. So we put 2 people there because we're plating each other. So
But what are we plating?
Exactly. Make it make sense based on the principles. If you have to be in the funnel, I'm a big fan of being a moving target, and that could just be going through the door, taking it more dynamically. But it kind of is what it is. So the general, I guess, take home for this video and these concepts, get on the first look side, whatever that is, if you can. And if you can't, don't stand in front of the door for any longer than you have to, and be a moving target. We talked about some really odd solutions on the other video, like the pole breaching alarms. It's like a 10-foot telescoping pole with a rubber inner tube on the end of it. And you can telescope that thing out, grab the knob, twist it till it opens, let it go, and then approach the door from 10 feet away. Great idea. There's a lot of cons to that, but is it better than standing in front of an open door where you have no angle? Probably. So think outside the box. If it's truly the last closed door in a residence and you really think there's a guy back there and there's no way to get into that room without exposing yourself standing in front of a closed door, what about going outside? What about a gun port? What about going through a window? What about any other thing besides standing there and kicking it and trying to make entry and doing whatever else you're doing? So let's think about it from our perspective that we always teach based on manpower, mission, environment. It's really easy to be like, oh, well, just go outside, use the rook, use the bearcat, use a wall charge. But we also teach a lot of civilians, and none of those solutions help them. So if it's home defense, if you have a house set up like this where you have an outward opening door with a limiting factor on the knob side, use speed. Make that entry quick, make it effective. Don't stay still in a fatal funnel. And that's really the only solution you have.
Yeah, so we go back to those fundamentals of CQB that we harp on every class, right? Safety, security, speed, surprise, violence of action. So if you're going to give up something, get something else. If I'm going to give up some safety and security by standing in a doorway, I might want to pick up my speed. If I'm going to manipulate my body around the tactical environment to better my position or better my teammate's position, we have to be able to conform to that. So Again, we always go back to those principles that we talk about. Manpower, mission, environment is going to dictate what we do in that place. Utilizing those principles of CQB: safety, security, speed, surprise, balance of action.
Yeah, just make it make sense and be able to explain what it is you're doing based on principles, and it's probably going to be a good one. If you can't explain what you're doing based on those factors, it's probably not something that you should be doing. And like I said in the other video, test it force on force. If you're at a department that has those capabilities, do it. If you're with your spouse or your group of homies or whoever, do it force on force and see if it works. And of course, just watching a YouTube video is not enough. So there's other supporting information. There's other videos on tactics. You may be thinking like, well, they didn't go in the room. Yeah, this is not a video about going into rooms, but we've got those, I promise. We've got probably 60 videos up by now, educational content, so check that out. Also look at our Patreon if you can't make it to in-person training, and even if you can, it's a good supplement. It's like $5 a month. I have the one for OTG. Jason has his own for his company, Ransom Tactical Solutions, and it's a lot of in-depth content where you can actually request stuff. So probably about 80% of the content we put out is users saying, hey, can you do a video on XYZ? And then, of course, I would highly suggest you take in-person training. Doesn't just have to be with us. A lot of great companies out there. But this stuff is all just theory until you do it. And until you do it opposed, it's really just getting down movements and footwork. So I would suggest some force-on-force stuff. Look at our curriculum. We train American citizens. I don't care if you're law enforcement, military, a lawyer, dump truck driver, hamburger flipper. Doesn't matter to me. You're guaranteed these rights. I would say God-given rights, but they're also ratified by our Constitution. So come out to a class. And as I say in almost every video, repent, turn to Christ, stop watching porn, eat some red meat, lift some weights, touch some grass. Tell your mom that you love her. Thanks for watching.
Miss you, Mike Jones.